Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. We're almost finished with the Amazon, and we're moving on to the melee lightning abilities. The first one on the list is Power Strike. Power Strike is not really the most amazing ability out there. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. It's kind of meh. It does have a pretty amazing damage output. On the screen, so it does show 26,000 when it's at level 50, and I mean it's halfway decent, like when you hit a target with it, but it's no Charge Strike, and Charge Strike just does so much more damage than Power Strike that it's kind of insane. Comparatively, when you look at Power Strike does 24,000 damage, or 1 to 24,000 damage, so anywhere between basically 1 to 24,000 per hit. Which means it can basically do nothing sometimes. Whereas Charge Bolt does between 1 and 9,517, and it releases 12 bolts, which is a lot higher than Power Strike, just in general. If you ran that on a calculator, you would see that Charge Strike just kind of does an insanely large amount of damage with 9,517 times the 12 bolts that are released. It does a pretty massive 114,000 damage per hit, which, as you can see, is nearly 4 times the damage that Power Strike does. And on top of that, Charge Strike does not have the ability to do only 1 damage. Because there are 12 bolts, the percent chance of all 12 bolts doing only 1 damage is next to nothing. So you almost always get decent damage out of Charge Strike, even if you get a lot of low rolls on the bolts, because there are so many bolts. Whereas if Power Strike rolls at 1, that's it. You just don't do any damage. Power Strike, however, is necessary as a synergy for Charge Strike, Lightning Strike, and also Lightning Fury. So if you were going to build any of these other abilities, you're going to have to put points into Power Strike. But Power Strike would generally be the last one that you put points into in terms of like an endgame character. However, if you're leveling up an Amazon, like a Lightning Fury Amazon from the beginning, you're going to dump a whole bunch of points into Power Strike in the beginning. It's halfway decent in the beginning of the game just for simply killing stuff, and it quickly gets replaced by Charge Strike as soon as it becomes available, but you are pretty much going to dump every single point that you have into Power Strike in the beginning of the game. And as you go forward, you're going to transition away from Power Strike as Charge Strike becomes the more powerful ability, and then eventually, if you're going to do a Lightning Fury Amazon, you're going to wean your way off of Charge Strike as well, and you're going to be using Lightning Fury more often than anything. Charge Strike is by far the highest single target damage and outshines Power Strike by miles, but Power Strike is definitely available to you first, which is certainly very nice. The mana cost on it is pretty high, though, at 12.7, and as you level it up, you will notice that you're going to have issues trying to get the mana requirements, because it starts out at a pretty hefty... I gotta take off some of my plus to skills here. It starts off at a pretty hefty mana cost of 2, which when you spawn on your Amazon, you only have like 14 mana to begin with. So you're gonna get a whole, like, what, 7 attacks off with Power Strike in the beginning. And as you level it up, you'll notice that the mana cost does increase quite nastily. And before you know it, you will be sitting at a very unhealthy 6.7 mana cost per attack. And very quickly, you're going to want to move away from this, but it will burn your mana relatively quickly early on in the game. And as you transition forward into Charge Strike is also going to be a lot of mana as well, but it's also going to deal way more damage, and the higher damage output of Charge Strike means you have to use it less, and because you have to use it less, you're definitely going to get more use out of it in general. Let me just go ahead and do some demonstrations for this ability real quick, because why not? So just to give you an idea, let's put Power Strike up against Charge Strike, which is its direct successor. And if I come out here and I attack a monster, like for instance an Urdar, of course I already cleared this zone. This is a lightning immune monster. Let's go to Crystalline Passage. That sounds like a fun one. So I can attack with the single target on this, and let me go ahead and pull the Infinity off my Merc so he's not killing things. You can see it doesn't really do very good damage. And need a couple mana potions here. And I'm going to show you the vast difference between Charge Strike and Power Strike in basically in their highest forms, so that you kind of understand that Power Strike is really not very useful of an ability. Whereas Charge Strike doesn't really require even to hit the target. It will just release the bolts. Power Strike does require a physical hit. Charge Strike, on the other hand, which is this one, what I'm using right now, hits the target multiple times very quickly. As you can see, absolutely annihilates the targets by comparison. Which really puts Power Strike in its kind of like a silly place, because it's an early ability that you use on this character, but it really gets no use afterwards. Because it just doesn't really output the same kind of damage as Charge Strike. This guy is lightning immune, so as you can see, he's taken a lot longer to kill. If I were to grab my light Power Strike ability and try and attack this same monster, you'll notice there's basically next to no damage being done to him whatsoever. Whereas if I go to the Charge Strike ability, you'll notice that he's still getting hurt, because Charge Strike is doing such massive damage that even with relatively low resistances, with relatively low damage output, it still smacks really hard. And if I were to throw the Infinity back on my Merc so that I got the Conviction Aura, which, why isn't, oh. You'll notice that he dies extremely quickly. Just a little bit of negative resistance is really all that's required with Charge Strike, because it does such massive damage output. I don't really think there's much more to go over with Power Strike. It's a skill that you're going to have to put points into if you want to get the damage output from Lightning Fury or from Charge Strike, or maybe even Lightning Strike if that's your prerogative. But overall, it's just a relatively useless skill that it gets outclassed by its successors. In single target, it is definitely outclassed by Charge Strike. It doesn't do any AoE damage, so it is definitely outclassed by Lightning Fury and Lightning Strike, which are both superior, very superior in terms of AoE. And as you go forward, you're going to respec your character eventually. And you may not have enough skill points to max out every single one of these abilities. Like, for instance, if you are a Lightning Fury's on, notice that all of the synergies for Lightning Fury are Power Strike, Lightning Bolt, Charge Strike, and Lightning Strike. So Power Strike is one of the 4 abilities that you need to cap out to get maxed Lightning Fury. It's most likely going to be your last one. Between Lightning Bolt and Power Strike, both of them are actually kind of terrible. And you're going to, on your respec, you're probably going to do something like this. You're going to max out Lightning Fury itself. And then you're going to max out Charge Strike, which is the better ability. So you're going to come down here and you're going to max out Charge Strike. And with whatever points that you have left, then you will max out Lightning Strike, or Lightning Bolt and Power Strike. And you may not have enough points to max out all of them, and you definitely want Power Strike to be basically the last one, because it's by far the least useful of all 4 of the abilities that you would max out. Lightning Strike is definitely a good one too. In fact, I kind of left that one out by accident. So Lightning Strike is pretty useful in groups, and it's definitely far more useful than Lightning Bolt and Power Strike. So you probably want to go something like this. So 20 points into Lightning Fury, 20 points into Charge Strike, and then 20 points into Lightning Strike, so that you have the Lightning Strike and the Charge Strike maxed out first. And then put your points into the Lightning Bolt and the Power Strike. And whatever's not maxed out isn't maxed out. I wouldn't worry about it. As you can see, it requires pretty much all my points just to do that, and nobody is going to avoid putting points into crit, penetrate, pierce, dodge, avoid, evade, and most people end up getting a Valkyrie as well. So you're definitely going to end up skimping somewhere, and Power Strike is definitely a good one to skimp on. I think that's pretty much it. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watch my videos, even when it's on a silly skill like Power Strike. And as always, keep watching.